Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. My guest today is very unusual, actually. It's Bob Brown, who's a dirt whisperer. Now, Bob, you got to tell me what makes you a dirt whisperer and what does that actually mean?
Well, in engineering, most people understand that there are structural engineers, right? There are also geotechnical engineers. And I owned a forensic engineering company and a foundation repair company. And the key to understanding the house's performance is the soil. If you think about it, all roads are dirt roads. It doesn't matter whether you paint them with asphalt or paint them with concrete, the road itself is dirt. And it's the same with the house. If the dirt is wrong, the house is going to have problems. So I became an expert in dirt. Most people think it's, simple. It's not. Lots of layers, different mineral contents, different affinities for water, different reactions to water. Water moves through them differently. And you could have lots of things going on the same site because of those layers. So it pays to understand the dirt.
I just got back from visiting the Grand Canyon. That gives you a whole respect for dirt, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
about 8
mean,
million years worth.
yeah, I mean, you start at the bottom, and the vision you assist, I guess, are 2 billion years old, right? And the whole of
Yeah,
humanity is like the last foot, right? The whole human
right.
race, right?
That's right.
So now, gives you respect for dirt. So everybody listening to this podcast has to do with dirt. I don't care if you're a home builder or remodeler or whatever you're building is on dirt. Right?
That's
So
right.
tell me a little bit about how do you tell good dirt from bad dirt? And, I mean, what should the average guy know about dirt or how does he find out?
Well, so in conjunction with dirt is the annual precipitation. And the reason I say that is because, clay is a problem. Clay is the problem soil, but it depends on the moisture. So for instance, in Houston, they have a lot of clay and it's really wet, right? So you put a house on it, and over time the edges dry out, and the clay shrinks, and the sides drop, and you have settlement. Okay,
Right.
the Southwest, you may get some areas with clay, but it's a desert. It's very dry, and so what happens is completely different. What happens is uh, you get a lot of rain, maybe in a monsoon storm or something, and there's very poor drainage, and the water goes down beside the house and under the house and accumulates over a 20-year period of time and activates clays that are dry and causes them to swell. And so now the middle of the house goes up like a big bubble. And that's a totally different problem, solved a totally different way, and it's easily mistaken for one for the other. So you got to know not only what the soil, but what the climate is like in your area.
I have a personal experience with that. I have a house in Cathedral City, right? And
Where's that?
it, it's in near Palm Springs, right? So the
Okay, all
bottom
right.
line was we didn't get much sand until we had a hurricane. It messed up all the topsoil. Now, literally, they have to shovel the road in front of my house like once or twice every couple months because it becomes a sand dune. And that never happened before. So it makes a huge difference. So it is, how can your average contractor, whether it's a remodeler or a home builder, whatever, learn about the dirt that he's going to work on? Like I'm sure they have walls that have sunk and cracks
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. How does he find out about whether it's the dirt or not the dirt? And what if he calls a foundation guy? Could that be a problem?
Yeah, don't call foundation guys. Always call a geotechnical engineer. Foundation guys are full of scams. I'm just going to say it. I owned a foundation repair company, and they hoodwink people on a constant basis, and they send out a salesman who's commissioned for 100% commission to basically sell everything they can, and they conduct a pseudo investigation, which is a sales pitch that dressed up to look like an engineering report, and they sell whatever they can. So let's talk about remodelers first. So if you're a
Okay.
remodeler, uh, you got to be a little bit careful because now, as I said, don't call a foundation contractor, call a geotechnical engineer. Okay. And on even a remodel, I would have a good friend who's a geotechnical engineer. Go take them to lunch and buy them lunch. They'll do it.
Mhm.
Get to know your area, get to know what to do. when builders build the pad, they do pad preparation, but they don't go outside the footprint of the house more than about 5 feet. Well, if
Hmm.
you're putting a home addition on, you're getting outside of that prepared pad.
Right.
You could be on soil that's problematic. So, if you talk to an engineer who knows the soils in your area, knows the layering, knows the geology of
Hmm.
how they're deposited, drills in it constantly, understands the dynamics involved, he may say, "Oh man, you better go down a good, 4 or 5 feet or something, right? Maybe more than normal, because you've got problematic soils that haven't been prepared." And
So for example, you could say building I don't know, an addition, you could build it on poor soil and then, a couple of years later it cracks or it moves or whatever, and they're going to come after you because you're supposed to know those things, right?
That's right. That's right. And I can tell you, I fixed a lot of those houses as a foundation repair contractor. Uh, Whenever there was an addition, there was often problems that followed it because we talked about it. It's not on the prepared pad.
Right. So what happens is now, what does it cost to bring in a foundation engineer? Because the foundation guy will do it for free, but he's trying to find problems and make a commission. I get it. But
Yeah, that's right.
But what
Yeah,
is
that's
what is it? What is it? A real engineer, if before I build this addition or whatever, and I get on soil I don't know anything about, what's it going to cost me? They drill, they use a shovel, what do they do to find out if it's good and what does it cost?
it depends. I mean, depends on a bunch of things. And sometimes it might just be a simple hand boring. Sometimes they might have to bring out the big rig. Maybe they don't need to do any soil sampling at all. Maybe they know that area. Maybe they did a boring near there and they can use that, right?
Mhm.
Every case is a little bit different. It could range anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. It's
Okay.
somewhere in that range. Okay.
But I'm
Money,
sure if it fails and you get sued, it's way more than that.
it's way more than that. And and you might get a foundation contractor to come out for free, but think about this for a minute. If you were really sick, like going to the hospital sick, really bad, you didn't know what the
Yeah.
problem is, and it was, scary and all that, right?
Mhm.
You going to go to a pharmaceutical rep for free, or are you going to go to a doctor and pay him?
Right.
That's kind of what we're talking about here.
Well, and I think probably people underrate the problem soils can cause, my guess, is they
Oh,
figure dirt is dirt.
right.
I'm gonna go down a foot on this foundation. I always go down a foot and I'm good. And then they find out a year later when the building sinks or something, the walls cracked, it wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, playing Russian roulette. You got one out of six chambers. You might be okay, but the one might be right on your head, and you could be in trouble.
Right. Now, a lot of people, before they buy a house, right, they have all these inspections, right? And probably one of them is a foundation. Are those any good or not?
Is what any good?
The foundation, you have to go through a house inspection sometimes when you sell a
Oh,
house and they
home
buy,
inspectors don't really understand foundations. I mean, what they're going to do is they're going to see if there's cracks, and if there's cracks, then they're going to go, oh, there's cracks in the walls. Doors are sticky. Better call a foundation repair expert. And that's about as good as I teach home inspectors. Now, I'm trying to educate them more. I spend a lot of time with them, but unless they want to really specialize in it, that's about the best you're going to get from them. Unless you
okay,
get one that is trained and certified in foundations, which I'm starting to offer, and hopefully people will take me up on it. But it's
right. So what
pretty
happens
complicated.
is if I buy a new house or buy a used house, and I'm going to remodel it, the foundation, they say, yes, it passed, whatever that means, but it may not be real because that's not what they know, right?
Right. Well, also, I mean, the previous owner could come through and patch all the cracks with a good drywall guy that may be hard to detect for the average person. So it might fly with flying colors, and then 6 months later, you'll find out about all the problems as they start to reappear.
Right. So, as a contractor, so remodeling contractor, home builder, whatever, how do you find these engineers and foundation guys? Like, where do you look? You look up on Zoom, use AI. How do you find the right guys to work with?
They're hard to find. Uh, if you Google foundation problems, you get all the foundation repair contractors because they spend a gazillion dollars, on Google and other places to be found, right?
Right.
It's hard to find good forensic geotechnical engineers. You can find them on my website, foundationrepairsecrets.com. I have a
Okay.
directory free to use, and
Okay.
the guys that are on there don't pay to be on there, so
Okay.
it's just trying to help people, right? And it's not perfect. I haven't vetted every one of these guys. I've just basically gone to every state, did a bunch of Google searches for a long time, went onto their website, seen that they do residential, seen that they do forensics, and put them on there. And so, I would love feedback if anybody goes on there and says, "Oh, this guy doesn't do this." I'm like, "Oh, okay, take him off,"
Right.
that
Right.
kind of.
So there isn't really, you're the most objective place to find that versus somebody that pays a bunch of money to be on Google so they
Yeah,
can go out and sell a bunch of foundations that people don't necessarily need.
that's right.
Okay. Now, what are the signs? I mean, if there are such things, if I'm doing a remodel, all right, or I'm building a house or, whatever, how do I look at the ground? How do I tell I might have a problem? Are there any like telltale signs that you can look for?
Yeah, there is, but I will tell you that the best thing to know is what I said earlier. Go find the local engineer, geotechnical engineer in your area and take him to lunch and pick his
Because you
brain.
probably don't even know what you don't know, right? And that's a
That's
problem.
right. That's right. It's complicated, but I will tell you two ways that you can tell for sure, at least with surface soils, okay? Surface soils, because you don't know what's below unless you dig, right?
Right.
But two things. So if it's really dry, if it's the middle of, haven't had rain in a long, long time and it's dry, maybe 6 months or something, right?
Hmm.
You'll see, you remember seeing these pictures of all the cracked up, soil,
Right.
that's evidence of clay soil that's shrunk, shrinking up. And when it rains, those cracks close. That's one way. Another way is to take a little bit of soil and add a little water to it and roll it like a cigar. Now, if it's clay, you'll be able to roll it up. If it's not clay, if it's sands and silts, it'll just fall apart. It won't roll. So that's two things you can do to kind of help see if you have clay soils. Now, clay soils aren't the only problem, but they're probably the majority of problems.
Okay. And so again, don't trust if they're just, a foundation, what do we call that, repair person, you shouldn't trust them automatically because they're on Google, right?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the industry has kind of grown up in itself and become a law unto itself. And it's all about making money. It's not about really objectively. I mean, you bring one of these guys to your house and you say, "Gee, how bad is it?" And they're like, "Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say you're like an 8.5." And you're like,
Right.
what's a 1 to 10 scale? I don't think there is a severity scale in engineering of like
Right.
1 to 10. So what is that? Like the Richter scale or something,
Yeah.
It,
So
it
what is
makes
the typical foundation trying to sell to make money on repairing your foundation? What does that look like?
Oh, so what they're going to do, they'll do what we call a manometer survey, a floor level survey. And they'll go around with a stick, and every 10 feet or something, and they'll record that on a floor plan. And then some of them are a little more sophisticated. They'll use software that draws topo lines.
Hmm.
Uh, and they'll say, "Oh, this area is low, so you need piers." And it might have been poured that way originally. It might have
Right.
moved a long time ago and is done moving, right? And that's another thing. They'll quite often these sales guys will tell you, "Well, if it's low, that means it's moving. It's going to continue to move." Well, listen, they have no idea. They're just guessing. The only guys that can tell you if it's going to continue to move is a geotechnical engineer.
Now, what about houses with, slab on grade versus foundations versus
Yeah.
basements? How does that change?
So, each type of foundation, and I go through this in my book, Foundation Repair Secrets, and I have little drawings of different types of foundations in there and all that. So, a slab on grade has two kinds. It has a conventional slab, which is a stem, footing, and a slab that's poured. All three are poured separately. It's called a three-pour slab sometimes.
Mhm.
And then you have these new post-tension slabs. And I'm not a big fan of the post-tension slabs, honestly. I mean, the original post-tension slab, sure, those are great. They have ribs that kind of like a waffle that go both directions, and they have cables in the top and bottom of the ribs to hold it nice and tight. Well, the industry figured out that if they sell what they call a monolithic thickness, a uniform thickness slab that's poured with just a slightly deepened edges on the sides. Well, I mean, those cables are right in the middle. Well, if you think about it, that doesn't really stop you from bending. All it does is keep you nice and tight. And so, and the turn down edges are not much at all. I mean, they might go into the soil maybe a few inches, and that stops no water from getting underneath, which is a lot of the problem with foundations. Water gets underneath and causes
No,
all
the
kinds of.
typical, like, I don't know why they grade it, they frame it, they put in rebar, and they pour it, and they're done.
Yeah, on a post-tension house, it's even, I mean, they just show up on the lot, set up the forms, throw a little bit of ABC in the middle, stretch their cables and pour it. Well, and do their plumbing.
Okay.
But there's no digging. And when they're all done, they might come in and put a couple inches of landscape fill on it, but it's not compacted well or anything.
Right.
Now, if you go to a crawl space, it does a couple of things for you. Crawl spaces are kind of middle of the country, and then basements are kind of more of the colder areas, maybe up
Right.
north and higher elevations. A crawl space eliminates a lot of the heave problems, which is great. So if you're in a drier area, maybe up cold, that's a good choice, right?
It's
Um,
also easier to remodel than digging up concrete, right?
yeah, that's right. That's right. So crawl spaces are great. A lot of times the jacks that support the middle portions of the house, they move around and need adjusting and whatever. Those can be a little problematic, but it's not the end of the world to fix them, right? It's pretty easy.
Mhm.
Uh, you go to a basement, you're digging down in the soil quite a ways, so you're getting past a lot of the problematic soils. But you can still have problems. And the main problem you have with basements is the walls. If they're not built stout enough, nowadays code is pretty good. Although I heard in Canada, they don't even require reinforcing in the walls. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe they do that. But, the older houses, you're going to have problems because they didn't have reinforcing in the walls and they
And also,
bulge.
they have water issues, like they get full of water,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. They leak a lot. And there's two ways to fix that. You can fix it on the inside or you can fix it on the outside. Inside's relatively cheap, and all it does is, you dig a little trench, you put a drain around the perimeter, you put that to a sump pump and you just control the water.
Hmm.
It can work pretty good. I mean, the better way is to go on the outside, but holy cow, it's a lot more money, right? I mean, you got to excavate
Right.
down, 10 feet and,
Yeah,
you got
that's
to
expensive.
back
Yeah.
for safety reasons. And, and even then, if you don't do it 100% perfect, you're going to have a leak.
Still gonna
So,
leak. Okay.
yeah.
So I have a question. If one of the listeners at least realizes they know what they don't know and say, you know what, every day I deal with dirt because I build stuff on it. Can they call you and ask you, like, your opinion, who to talk to? I mean, can you, like, give them some free advice?
Sure, they can call me anytime. I'm retired now, sold my companies. So I'm just trying to help people. So if somebody wants to call me, I mean, I'm not that big of an expert on new builds in terms of, new build practices,
Mhm.
but I've done a lot of fixing of stuff.
Cool. Well, how did they get in touch with you, Bob?
Well, you can reach me at 602-763-1307 or Bob at Tangsol, TENGSOL.com, or you can go to my website and leave a comment and try to find me on there, Foundation Repair Secrets.
Patient Pierce. And then if they would like a copy of your book, they go to Amazon or what?
You go to Amazon, you can go to my website. I think website takes you to Amazon. I'm not 100% sure, but you can get the book either way.
And you think that would be good reading for anybody in the remodeling industry or people that have to deal with dirt all the time?
Yeah, I mean it's not a long read. You could probably read the whole book in about 2 or 3 hours.
Hmm.
It's helpful to understand how things are done. how the industry works, how to protect yourself, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Well,
And
thanks.
you
I
can also
appreciate being
follow my
here.
blog.
Okay, cool. So, Bob, I think this is very informative, and it's something that probably a lot of contractors don't want to deal with, but they have to anyway. And usually the problem they deal with is when it's too late, and then it's really expensive because,
Right.
resurrection's harder than birth because you don't need attorneys involved, and that's never good.
Right.
So, thanks for being here, Bob. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, absolutely. Had a great time.